Part 30. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cup and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 508. Nangang Ziyu was completely overthinking it. Zhang Shuyu had the temperament to speak to his face if she had anything to say, so how could she play a show of losing love with him? Zhang Shuyu glanced at the items he was packing and saw a 2-foot-long wooden box on the table. It looked like it was the wooden box he took with him. She turned around and saw Qiuju outside the window. He reached into his sleeve with his right hand and took out several porcelain bottles and placed them on the table. Nangang Ziyu had seen the porcelain bottle she used to store poison. He picked up a porcelain bottle and held it in his hand, his eyes showing sadness. "Yu Niang, you have done so much for me, what can I do in this life to repay your kindness?" "Nangang Ziyu, there is no need to say thank you for our friendship, let alone repay it." Zhang Shuyu took the white porcelain bottles from him and put them all into the wooden box to prevent the bottles from colliding with each other and breaking. Zhang Shuyu found cotton handkerchiefs and wrapped the porcelain bottles separately. She said while packing, "Don't be soft-hearted if someone attacks you. There is a slow poison here, and the rest of the medicine will come on quickly. When using poison, remember to observe the direction of the wind. Even if you stand on the wind outlet, you must hold your breath before spraying it out. Your movements must be neat, and don't give the other party a chance to react." Zhang Shuyu was like a nagging old mother giving advice to her son who was traveling far away. Nangang Ziyu occasionally responded, but her eyes fell on that alluring face. Zhang Shuyu raised her head and met Nangang Ziyu's melancholy eyes. "Do you remember everything?" Nangang Ziyu quickly looked away. "Remember, Yu Niang, don't worry. She has told me the names of these medicines every year, and she also knows a little about their properties." Nangang Ziyu turned around and walked to the closet and put the last piece of clothing into the bag. Zhang Shuyu accidentally caught a glimpse of red inside the baggage. She didn't have time to think too much, and she spoke endlessly about her philosophy on the governance of the country. "Remember to hold the right to speak in your hands. The guidance of public opinion will often give you unexpected results." Nangang Ziyu nodded frequently. "Understand, water can carry a boat or capsize it. Restaurants and tea houses are the best way to convey the message. When you need it, you can also use people's fear of gods to achieve the purpose you want." Zhang Shuyu paused and said, "You are the queen's son, so you should be the prince. With power in your hands, you can let the people live and work in peace and contentment, and be a wise king for a generation. Yu Niang, thank you for your help and enlightenment. I will not let those people go through the suffering my mother has suffered these years. I will use the seeds you gave me to make the people's lives richer and richer." Seeing that Nangang Ziyu had fighting spirit, Zhang Shuyu smiled happily. "I believe you will make Lianguo richer and stronger than before. Remember, those who win the hearts of the people win the world. This is an eternal law." "Yu Niang, how do you know so much?" Nangang Ziyu has always known that Zhang Shuyu is knowledgeable and talented. He didn't expect that she knew so much about governing the country. Nangang Ziyu packed up the last baggage, and the two sat down and talked for a while. Before the cup of tea was finished, Qiuju reported, "Miss, Uncle Lin is here. Please come in quickly." Zhang Shuyu and Nangang Ziyu looked at the door almost at the same time and said in unison. Before he finished speaking, Lin Miaoxiao walked in with a solemn expression. Nangang Ziyu stood up and bowed. "Uncle Master, I used your pension money to buy this yard, and now I will keep it for you to take care of in the future. Yu Niang is next door, so I can rest assured that she will take care of me." Lin Miaoxiao glared at him displeasedly. "You heartless bastard, you just left just like that. You are the future prince of Liang Kingdom, why didn't you tell your uncle to go to Liang Kingdom to retire?" "Uncle, nephew, that's not what I meant. I'm not saying this because I'm worried that you won't be used to living in a foreign country. As long as you are willing, I certainly welcome you to live in Liang country forever, Nangang Ziyu said, and went as before, pulling at the sleeves of Lin Miaoxiao. Lin Miao slapped Nangang Ziyu's hand away. You have to promise my uncle that you will practice hard when you go back and don't be afraid of hardship. There are dangers there and the master is not around, so you have to protect yourself. Uncle, don't worry about me. With the help of my senior brothers, I went back to confirm my identity. The first thing I did was to pull out Mo Xian's nails and then deal with him. Nangang Ziyu actually had an idea in her mind a long time ago. When she returned to Liang Kingdom, it was inevitable that there would be a bloody storm. Either you die or I die, leaving his mother and son separated for more than 20 years, and even deliberately trying to kill him. If the cheap father refused to give his mother and son a fair explanation, he might as well use other means to kill him. Lin Miaoxiao gave Nangang Ziyu a rare thumbs up. Yes, just don't be soft-hearted. They are not your relatives, but enemies, enemies who want your life at any time. In Nangang Ziyu's heart, his relatives are in Wanling. Zhang Shiyu nodded frequently and listened quietly to Lin Miaoxiao's instructions to Nangang Ziyu. After talking for a while, Lin Miaoxiao was still worried about this obscure nephew. If you can't fight against someone in Wanling, you can come back to Wanling, and you don't have to give up the title of Prince Lao Shizi. When Lin Miaoxiao said this, he could no longer hold back his parting emotions, and his eyes instantly filled with mist. Seeing this, Zhang Shiyu interjected and comforted, Uncle Lin, you have to believe him. I have prepared a big box of good things for him. It will be no problem to deal with those brainless villains. Only then did Lin Miaoxiao come back to his senses. Yes, yes, you Yato can make poisons. With those poisons, Uncle Master can finally let go. And your master, remember to write letters often. Your senior brothers brought the carrier pigeons down the mountain, including the carrier pigeons from the capital. Lin Miaoxiao glanced at Zhang Shiyu and continued, you and you girl are not destined to be together. If you write to me from time to time to report your safety, the emperor should not mind. Zhang Shiyu felt that Lin Miaoxiao's words had gone off track when she heard this. She took over the conversation, Uncle Lin, Master Nangang can write to me at any time. This is our private matter and has nothing to do with the emperor. Silly girl, do you think? Lin Miaoxiao shook her head and swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Yu Niang, I don't know when we will meet again after I leave. I'll leave my uncle to you. Lin Miaoxiao's love for this nephew is no less than that of a father, so Nangang Ziyu naturally couldn't bear to part with him. If the brothers go to Liang State with him, the uncle will really be alone in the capital. Zhang Shiyu leaned forward and winked at Lin Miaoxiao playfully. Uncle Lin, you didn't tell him about Aunt Du? It's time to tell him, so he won't worry about you being left alone. No, it's nothing, don't talk nonsense, girl. Lin Miaoxiao's face turned red, and her tongue was tied. Nangang Ziyu was confused, looked at Zhang Shiyu, and then turned to look at Lin Miaoxiao. Aunt Du, Uncle Master, is Aunt Du that Yu Niang is talking about Miss Du's aunt? What's going on between you two? Zhang Shiyu, what else can it be, you will have a master's aunt soon. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 510. The next morning. As the sky just turned pale, a group of people and horses galloped out of the city. Nangang Ziyu lifted the curtain and looked back, and saw two familiar figures on the city gate. Yu Niang, you don't like to be sad about parting, why do you come to say goodbye quietly? Seeing the people on the city wall waving at him, Nangang Ziyu couldn't hold back his tears anymore, and waved his hand vigorously in response. When the carriage went far away, so far that the city wall could no longer be seen, Nangang Ziyu reluctantly withdrew his hand. At this time, he was already in tears. On the city wall, Zhang Shiyu had been busy preparing for Nangang Ziyu's departure for several days, and she thought she had accepted the reality calmly. Now watching him go farther and farther, the long-suppressed parting emotion surged in her heart. Unconsciously, tears blurred her eyes. The morning breeze blew, and the tears rolling down her cheeks were cold. Smelling the familiar cold bamboo fragrance, Zhang Shuyu lowered her eyes slightly, and a line of tears fell again. When her eyes were clear, she saw a big hand in front of her holding a handkerchief. Yu Yiniang, don't be sad. We have helped as much as we can. You also came to see him off in person, without any regrets. Zhang Shuyu took the handkerchief handed over by Xiao Jingzhao and wiped her tears. You brought me here early in the morning just to make me have no regrets. Yes, I don't want you to be sad. Xiao Jingzhao told the truth. Zhang Shuyu put the handkerchief that wiped her tears and snot back into Xiao Jingzhao's hand. She raised her eyes and glared at him. You said it so easily. You are not me, how do you know what I think? I have been sad since the first day I came to this ghost place. Yu Yiniang, you. The man was helpless to see the little woman in front of him like a kitten with its fur blown up. Xiao Jingzhao said patiently, Yu Yiniang, let's talk it out, okay? Mo Zixuan is gone, and Sui Sui's biological father is still here, why don't you always believe me? After Zhang Shuyu lost her temper, she also realized that it was useless to blame Xiao Jingzhao. Nangong Ziyu's identity was revealed, and he would always leave. It's not about whether I believe it or not. You are the king of a country. You should do your job in your position. You can't just promise me. Zhang Shuyu paused and said, besides, I only have a relationship with Sui Sui with you, and we are not close friends. Nangong Ziyu and I have gone from strangers to knowing each other and cherishing each other. Xiao Jingzhao was speechless. Zhang Shuyu's words overturned his cognition. He had already had physical contact with her and had a son, but she actually said that he had no close relationship with her? This. Xiao Jingzhao doubted himself again. How could he get into Yu Niang's heart? The two went down the tower, and Xiao Jingzhao personally sent Zhang Shuyu back. After watching Zhang Shuyu enter the gate of Zhang Mansion, Xiao Jingzhao said to the driver, go to Minister Lin's house. Xiangyang followed on horseback. Seeing that the carriage in front was not going back to the palace, he had to follow it. Lin Mansion. Lin Xiangji was sleeping soundly, and Zuxi shouted in his ear, Master, get up quickly, the emperor is here. Lin Xiangji woke up with a start. Yesterday, we agreed not to attend the court early. The envoys from the capital have all left. What is he doing here? Isn't this just a way to torment me? Lin Xiangji rarely slept in, and all his anger about getting up was directed at Zuxi. Seeing his young master yelling angrily, Zuxi quickly shut up. Zuxi saw how hard his young master worked, and it hurt his heart. The young master used to live a free and easy life, and it was common for him to sleep until noon. Since coming to the capital, I can only sleep in 2 or 3 times a month. This time I finally have the chance to sleep one more day, but the emperor disturbed it. Although she felt distressed, she saw her young master lying motionless, and Zhu 11 urged, young master, if you don't get up, the emperor will go to the inner courtyard. Let him lie down, I just say a few words to him, it's okay. Hearing the emperor's voice, Lin Xiangji lost all sleepiness and jumped up from the bed. Your Majesty, your sudden attack makes me panic. Lin Xiangji pretended to salute. Xiao Jingzhao grabbed him and said, there are no outsiders here, don't do that set of false courtesy, put on a coat and sit down to chat with me for a while. The weather in March is getting warmer day by day, and the morning and evening in the capital are still cool. Thank you for your consideration, Your Majesty, I am very angry. Zhu 11 almost laughed out loud. I am afraid that only he knows what his young master means by angry. Seeing his young master leading the emperor to the flower hall, Zuxi quickly took an outer robe and followed him. The maids in the courtyard saw the emperor coming and quickly brought tea and cakes. Lin Xiangji took the clothes from Zuxi's hand and put them on his shoulders, and said sleepily, "Your Majesty, tell me, what's the important matter that brings you here so early?" Ahem. Xiao Jingzhao coughed twice and picked up the teacup. The tea was too hot, so he put it back. Lin Xiangji knew from his expression that what he was going to say was not convenient for a third person to hear. Then he ordered Zuxi, "Go to the kitchen and ask the kitchen to cook 2 bowls of yuan xiao. At this time, the emperor is still hungry. I'll go right away." Seeing Zuxi walking away, Lin Xiangji picked up a piece of cake and stuffed it into his mouth. He said vaguely, "Go ahead, there's no one else in the room." Xiao Jingzhao thought for a moment and said, "Xiangji, you've traveled a lot and have seen a lot of people. Your Majesty, don't flatter me, let's talk business." Lin Xiangji swallowed the cake and picked up another piece and put it in his mouth. Seeing that his thoughts were seen through by his childhood friend, Xiao Jingzhao was not afraid of losing face and asked bluntly, "How can I make you Niang fall in love with me?" This. The cake in Lin Xiangji's mouth was stuck in his throat and he couldn't spit it out or swallow it. He quickly took a sip of the hot tea and swallowed it. "Your Majesty, you also gave my cat to Miss Zhang, and you also had a child with her. This matter is difficult to deal with. Rong Weikan needs to think about it carefully." Lin Xiangji also had a headache thinking about it. Other girls would cry and shout for the man to be responsible even if they were hugged by a man. Why doesn't it work with Zhang Shiyu? Your Majesty, having one Sui Sui is not enough. You should find a way to have another one with her. When she is pregnant and needs someone to take care of her, you can bring her into the palace. Xiao Jingzhao sighed, "Are you talking like a human being? You know how Sui Sui got pregnant." Lin Xiangji's eyes lit up, "Your Majesty, we can do it again." "No. Think about it again." Xiao Jingzhao interrupted Lin Xiangji's words. "Your Majesty, you are busy with government affairs every day, and you don't have enough time to talk to the girl like the sons of noble families. My suggestion is a bit shameless, but the effect is good." Hearing Lin Xiangji's words, Xiao Jingzhao resisted the urge to swear. He suppressed his emotions and asked, "Does the talking and talking you said work?" Lin Xiangji answered without thinking, "Yes, it definitely works. There has never been a failure. Your Majesty is so handsome. If you go to Miss Zhang every day, you will definitely succeed." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 514. A girl said, "Sister Kui's fate matches that of the emperor." This was said by the right minister. My father heard it with his own ears in the court that day. That can't be true. Don't mention it again. My cousin will misunderstand if he hears it. Kui Yudi felt a little guilty. There was no hope of entering the palace, but she was also unwilling to do so. My father had all betrothed each of the young talents he had chosen, and he always thought highly of himself. If he randomly married a loser who had accomplished nothing, he might as well comb his hair and go to Peach Blossom Temple. After finally choosing a distant cousin who was already an official, he knew everything about her. He was not as good as Long Zhangfengzi, but he was also a talented person. Kui Yudi was not filled with joy, but she was willing to listen to her mother and agree to the marriage. A girl did not agree with Kui Yudi's words and muttered, "Master Huiwen has the ability to predict the future. He doesn't talk nonsense." Yes, the emperor invited him to the palace to tell fortunes and read the horoscope. He spoke like a living bodhisattva. The future queen's destiny will definitely be the one that matches him. Kui Yudi was moved by the words of several girls. No one knows her true destiny, and people outside only think that her destiny is the one the emperor is looking for. If the emperor cannot find a more suitable person, is there still a glimmer of hope for him? If the emperor really has a son, the position of prince is gone. Even if he enters the palace and gives birth to a prince, it is just a stepping stone to become a prince, a girl said disapprovingly. The girl's words immediately attracted rebuttals from the other ladies. That's not what I said. If you give birth to a dragon son for the emperor, you will be a prince after all. You can also be a concubine. Your life of glory and wealth will be guaranteed. Even if I can see the emperor's fairy face often in the palace, I will be satisfied. A girl couldn't help but laugh and said, Miss Su, come on, if you really enter the palace, some people will be satisfied. They are not all trying to compete for favors, hoping to monopolize the emperor's favor. Seeing that everyone was talking a little boldly, Kui Yudi raised her hand to interrupt everyone. Sisters, let's enjoy the flowers. Tomorrow we will each draw a picture to see who draws the most beautiful peach blossoms and keep it in the nunnery as a souvenir. A girl took over the conversation. Of course it goes without saying that Sister Kui has the best painting skills. It feels good to be praised. Kui Yudi smiled and said modestly, it's okay. All the sisters here today are all-rounders. Don't hide anything. Zhang Shuya pulled Qiuju's sleeve and prepared to leave. At this time, someone mentioned her name. Qiuju lowered her voice and said, Miss, they are gossiping behind my back. Zhang Shuya stopped and heard Kui Yudi say, I really admire Zhang Shuya. She can not only open a restaurant to make money, but also open a medical clinic to help the world, and she also knows so many things that ordinary people have never seen. As soon as she finished speaking, a girl echoed, no, the business of Jingxi Yufang on Wutong Street is so good. I queued several times to buy a piece of cloth, but I don't know what she doesn't know. Hey. People are more annoying than others. My father said that she has gained respect for the emperor among foreign envoys. I heard that the emperor treats her differently, and I don't know what tricks she used to be charming. The position of queen may belong to him. I've also heard that she was taken into the palace by the emperor's guards more than once. She must have been favored by the emperor a long time ago. The emperor is also a person with 7 emotions and 6 desires. With her appearance, it would be strange for the emperor not to be moved by her. Seeing everyone's excitement, Kui Yudi comforted everyone at the right time. Time is indeed destiny. Sisters, don't be discouraged. The harem can't only accommodate one queen. If the emperor chooses a draft, I support you all to participate. No matter what, there is always a chance to give it a try. With a few words, Kui Yudi successfully directed the fire towards Zhang Shuyu. Qiuju was so angry that she rushed over to argue with them. Zhang Shuyu quickly pulled her away. I walked too fast and stepped on a dead branch on the ground, which made a crisp click sound. The girls on the opposite side heard the noise and ran away, only to see a piece of skirt disappearing into the sea of flowers in an instant. When the two of them walked away, Qiuju looked back and said, they say she is a noble girl in the capital, but they all gossip behind her back like a talkative woman, and they have learned their education like a dog's belly. Miss, it seems that Miss Kui didn't slander you, but her words were just to make you hateful. Zhang Shuyu smiled faintly, what did you say just now, that the emperor is good? Your young lady has not done anything yet, which makes people jealous, but I don't care, your young lady does not rely on them to live her life, and she talks about others. Love so well. Zhang Shuyu was born in 2 generations, and her mind was naturally broader than that of ordinary people. It's perfectly normal for a group of teenage girls to get together and gossip. As for their harsh words, I can only say that they are uneducated. Looking back on the past few days, she had indeed been too popular, but this was not the result she wanted. However, the tree was so big that it attracted the wind, and she couldn't hide it even if she wanted to. Seeing that her young lady was not hurt by those girls' words, Qiuju had no choice but to shut up. When the two found Du Yutong and Zhan Shehen, they were very busy helping the two peach-picking ants pick peach blossoms in the peach forest. Seeing Zhang Shiyu and the others passing by, she quickly waved and shouted, "Sister Zhang, come here and help us." "Auntie, are you doing rouge or something?" Zhang Shiyu walked over, picked up a peach blossom and put it into the basket on the ground. An ant smiled and replied, "The dark red ones can be used to make rouge, and the pink ones can be used to make peach blossom stuffing." During the chat, Zhang Shiyu learned that in addition to donations from everyone, the ants in the nunnery also made rouge and gouache in exchange for money. Only a few of the ants' families still send money. As the peach blossom wine sold for a high price in Juxian Pavilion, the ants also planned to learn how to make peach blossom wine. Zhang Shiyu immediately decided to go talk to her aunt in charge tonight about peach blossom stuffing. Zhang Shiyu and others helped pick peach blossoms, while Qiuju took the other two girls to get their luggage. The place where Gao Mu and Du Fu's boy stayed was not far away. In order for Qiuju to find him quickly, Gao Mu arranged the room and stood at the intersection. When he saw his wife coming, he quickly went to greet her. "Madam, has the place been settled?" Gao Mu was about to reach out to pull his wife, but when he saw another maid behind Qiuju, he quickly took his hand back. "Ahem." Gao Mu coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. Qiuju said, "That's it. We live in the back courtyard, which is very close to the back door. If you want to inform the lady of something, you can ask the ants who come in and out at the back door to pass the message." Gao Mu glanced at Qiuju's belly and said, "It's heavy, I'll send you there." "Okay, I'll take you there to know the way." The three of them followed Gao Mu into the farmyard, took the baggage and walked back. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 515. Zhang Shiyu, Du Yutong, and Zhan Shehen helped pick the petals until noon before returning to the courtyard. "Sister Zhang, my arms are sore, can you help me with it?" Back in the house, Zhan Shehen was lying on the bed with her arms and legs spread out, looking exhausted. She was more active than Zhang Shiyu and Du Yutong, and had the most energy. The two of them stood under the tree to pick the peaches, and she tucked her skirt around her waist and climbed up the peach tree. The two ants were worried that she would fall, and they couldn't persuade her. She also asked Du Yutong to hand her a backpack to hang on the branches. It's true, she picked the peaches really fast. Seeing Zhan Shehen lying there groaning, everyone laughed. "Sister Zhang, don't laugh, my arms and legs are sore, no wonder peach wine is so expensive, this first process is so difficult." Zhang Shiyu walked over and pulled Zhan Shehen's arm and rubbed it. Making peach wine is not only difficult in terms of process, but also the short flowering period, which can easily lead to untimely picking. The best flowers are when they bloom on the first day. When they are about to wither, the quality of the wine produced is much worse. Du Yutong also came over and took Zhan Shehen's other arm and squeezed it. Hard work is not easy. Farmers work hard all year round and don't have much spare money, so don't believe the rhetoric of scholars, farmers, merchants, and businessmen when choosing a husband's family. Zhan Shehen felt the same way. She looked at Zhang Shiyu and smiled and said, "Of course, Sister Zhang is an example. She is good at business and makes a lot of money. No one neglects her wherever she goes." She said this because she saw that the ants took good care of them when she came back, and the water for washing in the yard was full. Not only was she polite, but she also specially sent the mint leaves they were talking about. Zhang Shiyu teased her seriously, "Ants don't look at how well I do business, they mainly look at how hard you pick the petals." Puff. Ha ha ha. Du Yutong laughed so hard that her body softened and she fell on the bed. Seeing the two rolling around on the bed laughing, Zhang Shiyu couldn't help but smile with her hands covering her lips. Qiuju, Zuer, and Zhan Shehen's maid went to get lunch together. 2 dishes and 1 soup, Zhang Shiyu picked up a bowl and filled it with half a bowl of soup. With a thought, a pill for relaxing muscles and relieving pain slipped into the soup bowl and then handed it to Zhang Shihen. Drink some hot soup first, and the soreness will go away in a while. Thank you, Sister Zhang. Zhang Shihen took the soup bowl and drank it all. During the meal, Zhang Shihen was surprised to find that the soreness in her arms and legs disappeared. Sister Zhang, it really doesn't hurt anymore. Look, Zhang Shihen was afraid that everyone would not believe it, so she jumped back and forth. Zhang Shiyu smiled but said nothing. Du Yutong also thought it was amazing. From this, Zhang Shihen came to a conclusion that if you are tired, you should drink hot soup. Later, this habit became a traditional habit of her family and was passed down to her grandson's generation. This is a story for later. No matter how beautiful the peach blossoms are, it is impossible to appreciate them all the time. In the afternoon, everyone went to the nearby village to stroll around. The rape flowers in the field were also in full bloom, and the bees were buzzing back and forth in the rape fields, a busy scene. Du Yutong and Zhang Shihen occasionally met one or two familiar girls. They greeted each other and continued to play with their good sisters. After strolling around, several people felt a little sleepy in spring, and Zhang Shiyu led everyone back to rest. Perhaps because they were too tired from playing, except Zhang Shiyu, the rest of the people slept until sunset and dusk. While everyone was sleeping, Zhang Shiyu went into the space to soak in a hot spring. After leaving the space, she filled the water tank with water again. Fortunately for Zhang Shiyu, everyone was confused and did not deliberately thank the ants. Qiuju, in particular, thought that the money donated by the young lady had worked, and the ants even prepared water for everyone to wash. Her hair was not yet dry, and Zhang Shiyu estimated that the ants who picked peach blossoms would all come back at this time. She wanted to go out with her hair loose, but was worried that she would be seen as sloppy if she was seen. She simply used a hairband to loosen her hair behind her head. After finding out that the housekeeper ant lived in the front yard, Zhang Shiyu walked along the bluestone corridor to find her. The laughter of the girls could be heard from time to time in the courtyards on both sides of the atrium. When she came to the front yard, Zhang Shiyu went straight to the hall where Guanyin Bodhisattva was enshrined. It was said that the housekeeper ant lived in the next room. Before she got close, Zhang Shiyu smelled a smell of soup in the air. Is Aunt Meng here? Zhang Shiyu walked to the window and called softly. Ahem. Miss, is there something wrong? The person in the room coughed twice in response, and the voice was weak. Zhang Shiyu judged from her panting that she had phlegm in her body. Aunt Meng, Zhang Shiyu, come to see you. Is it convenient for you? If not, I will come another day. Before Zhang Shiyu finished speaking, she heard the person in the room say, Miss Zhang, please come in. The door is not closed. Thank you, Aunt Meng. Zhang Shiyu was not polite, and walked forward, opened the door and walked in. Zhang Shiyu quickly glanced into the room. In the room, a thin person was lying quietly on the bed. A ray of sunset slanted in from the gap of the window lattice, and the light was divided into soft golden lines, falling on the faded table in front of the window, forming mottled light and shadow. The air was filled with a faint scent of sandalwood and herbs, which was a common smell in the nunnery, with a soothing tranquility. The room was simply furnished, but it was fully equipped with basic daily necessities. Seeing Zhang enter the room, Aunt Meng struggled to sit up and picked up a fire starter from the small table next to the bed. Aunt is not feeling well, please take a rest, let me come. Zhang Shiyu took a step forward, took the fire starter and lit the pine oil lamp on the small table. The oil lamp gave off a steady light, as if it was a ray of hope in the darkness. Zhang Shiyu could see Aunt Meng's face clearly. She had kind eyebrows and delicate features. A peachwood hairpin was inserted in her bun, and a strand of black hair hung down at the end of her eyebrows. Perhaps she was too thin, so she looked frail. Even if she was wearing plain clothes, it was difficult to hide her outstanding grace. It was not difficult to see how beautiful Aunt Meng was when she was young. "Miss, please sit down. I caught a cold a few days ago, and my old illness came back." "Thank you, Aunt. Spring is warm and cold, and it is the season when you are most susceptible to colds." Zhang Shiyu bowed and returned to the table to sit down. After Zhang Shiyu sat down, she saw clearly that there was a small stove in the corner of the room, on which was a rough ceramic pot for boiling medicine. The fire in the stove had gone out, and a faint white smoke was coming out of the pot. Zhang Shiyu said with great insight, "Aunt Meng, it's time to drink the medicine. I will help you pour half a bowl." Aunt Meng looked at the woman in the room intently, and secretly marveled in her heart that she was really a rare beauty. "Thank you, young lady, I will wait a while before drinking." Aunt Meng leaned back on the pillow and reached out to pull the curtain aside. Zhang Shiyu saw that she seemed to be in much better spirits. "Straight to the point, I heard that the aunts are going to make peach blossom wine this year. My daughter runs a restaurant. I came here to discuss with the aunts. When the peach blossom wine is ready, can you sell it all to my daughter?" Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article feed, placement, below article feed, target. Type, mix. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 517. Before Zhang Shiyu could recover, she saw Aunt Meng quickly put the white porcelain bottle in her hand under the pillow, and then made a silencing gesture towards Zhang Shiyu. Zhang Shiyu seemed to understand what Aunt Meng meant. She didn't want people to know that she was taking the antidote and the person who gave it was still in the nunnery. "Auntie, are you feeling better?" Before he finished speaking, Kui Yudi, dressed in a colorful dress and gorgeous clothes, walked in gracefully, followed by two delicate-looking maids. Aunt Meng coughed twice and sat up straight. She suppressed the hatred in her eyes and said, "I'm fine. I have an old problem. Dyer doesn't need to worry." Seeing Zhang Shiyu standing in the room, the surprise in Kui Yudi's eyes flashed away, and then he gave Zhang Shiyu a salute. "It turns out Sister Zhang is here too, what a coincidence." Kui Yudi's manners were thorough and generous, making it impossible for anyone to find a single fault. Zhang Shiyu's intuition is that this woman is a high-ranking green tea. Zhang Shiyu responded with a warm smile, pretending not to understand anything. "Did Miss Kui just call Aunt Meng?" "Yes." Before Kui Yudi could explain, Aunt Meng said expressionlessly, "Her mother is my sister-in-law, and I am a concubine of the Meng family." "Aunt, don't talk about whether you are a concubine or not. My mother has never regarded you as my sister. Before I went out, my mother gave her many instructions, telling me to stay here for a few more days and honor my aunt." Kui Yudi walked towards the bed as she spoke. Before she could reach out her hand, Aunt Meng took her hand away in her arms imperceptibly. Zhang Shiyu saw a flash of doubt in Kui Yudi's eyes, but her expression returned to normal in the blink of an eye. "Today Dyer came over a little late for fun, and my aunt is angry with Dyer," Kui Yudi said coquettishly, showing off the air of a little daughter. Aunt Meng's hands in her sleeves were clenched into fists, and her body was shaking slightly uncontrollably. "It's nothing. How could my aunt be angry with you? There are sisters taking care of me in the nunnery. I'm very well. Don't let your mother worry. Dyer had better return to the capital as soon as possible." Aunt Meng leaned back as she spoke, closing her eyes slightly to hide the disgust that could barely be concealed in her eyes. "Aunt, are you feeling uncomfortable?" Kui Yudi said and turned to look at the medicine jar in the corner. Liugja quickly understood, "I'm here to serve the soup." Zhang Shiyu stood aside and watched Kui Yudi's performance like a man in the air. Seeing that the medicine jar was still steaming, Kui Yudi urged, "Don't be stunned, bring the medicine over quickly." "No, I've already drank it." I'm extremely ill and there's no cure for it. Just give your mother a message and I won't bother her to bring me any medicinal materials from now on. Don't be discouraged, Aunt. Take good care of yourself. You will get better one day. Liugzhu moved quickly and quickly poured half a bowl of soup and brought it over. Kui Yudi took the soup. Auntie, drink another half bowl. The doctor said that the effect of this medicine comes slowly. It doesn't matter if you take it more than once a day. Kui Yudi moved the medicine bowl forward. Aunt Meng leaned against the bed and remained motionless, showing no intention of taking it and drinking it. One of them ignored her, and the other stood in front of the bed, staring at each other. They were in a stalemate for a while. Zhang Shuya couldn't stand it any longer, and said quietly, Miss Kui's filial piety is commendable, but it's a pity that the medicine in your hand is not suitable for your aunt's illness, and it won't be of any benefit to your aunt's illness. Impossible, these are all high-quality medicinal materials. If it weren't for my father. Kui Yudi glanced at Aunt Meng, who was resting on the bed with her eyes closed, and said in a different way, if it had been anyone else, these medicinal herbs would not have been found. Aunt Meng's eyes were still closed, and an imperceptible sneer appeared at the corner of her mouth. Zhang Shuya carefully observed Kui Yudi's expression, and there was no guilt or panic. She concluded that Kui Yudi did not know that the precious medicinal materials she brought were mixed with heart-eating grass. Miss Kui, not to mention that precious medicinal materials are useful for patients. Aunt Meng is weak. It will be useless even if you get a century-old ginseng. If it is not replenished, it will be a life-threatening medicine. Sister Zhang, I don't know, what should I do? Kui Yudi's hand shook slightly and she almost spilled the soup. The maid Lu Su quickly took the medicine bowl and put it down. Everyone knew Zhang Shuyu's medical skills, and Kui Yudi believed in what she said. Zhang Shuyu roughly guessed who was responsible for the poison from the conversation between the two. In the big house, the legitimate daughter and the concubine are harmonious on the surface, but they are often incompatible behind the scenes. Just like the original owner and Zhang Jiaoqiao. The kind and simple person suffered a big loss in the end. While Aunt Meng closed her eyes to rest, the pills melted in her stomach, and a chilly feeling spread to her limbs. The feeling of chest tightness is significantly relieved, there is a cool feeling in the throat, and the feeling of wanting to cough disappears. Aunt Meng secretly admired him, he was indeed a miracle doctor who was famous all over the capital. Thinking that the grudge between himself and his eldest sister had nothing to do with the little girl in front of him, he adjusted his emotions. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at Kui Yudi, who was deadlocked on the bed. Dire, please go back to your courtyard and rest. The smell of medicine in my room is so heavy that it won't smell like you. I know my own body well. Miss Zhang can help me, you don't have to worry about prescribing medication. Auntie, please have a good rest. Dire will come see you tomorrow. Kui Yudi was a little girl after all. No matter how deep her thoughts were, she never thought that someone in her family would take her aunt's life. After bowing to Aunt Meng, he turned to look at Zhang Shuyu. Thank you, Sister Zhang. Watching her niece leading her maid away, Aunt Meng lifted the quilt and got out of bed. Zhang Shuyu saw that she was about to pick up the bowl of soup and medicine, so she hurriedly walked over and said, Auntie, you still need to rest, so I'll do the work. Just as Zhang Shuyu picked up the medicine bowl, footsteps sounded outside the door, and her aunt was bringing dinner. Seeing Aunt Meng standing on the ground, the aunt asked with concern, is Sister Meng feeling better? Sister, you're here just in time. Please help me remove the medicine bowl and everything else used to make medicine and throw them away. Sister Meng, can you survive without taking medicine? The young aunt looked worried. Aunt Meng said categorically, don't ask so many questions. I'll tell you another day. Take all these things away and throw them away. Don't enter the kitchen. When the young aunt saw Aunt Meng's serious expression, she knew that what was going on here might not be simple, so she hurriedly put down the tray. She took the medicine bowl from Zhang Shiyu's hand, picked up the medicine jar, and left quickly. Miss Zhang, did you guess who poisoned me? Aunt Meng had no intention of having dinner right away. She picked up a coat from the hanger, put it on, walked to the table and sat down. Zhang Shiyu nodded slightly. I probably guessed that it would be better for Aunt Meng to stay away from those so-called relatives in the future. Aunt Meng pointed to another chair and motioned for Zhang Shiyu to sit down. After Zhang Shiyu sat down, Aunt Meng reached out and pushed the window outward. The window was half open, and a breeze blew into the house, bringing in a hint of the fresh air unique to the countryside, which diluted the smell of herbs in the house, and the air suddenly became fresher. Aunt Meng looked far away, her thoughts drifting away again, and she spoke indifferently. That was more than 20 years ago. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 518. That year, my sister-in-law and I both got haircuts. My sister-in-law was 1 month older than me. Her haircut ceremony was very grand. Many girls came to the house. The rules of the capital have always been like this. The firstborn daughter has a good relationship with the firstborn daughter, and those of us who are concubines have to avoid it. In order not to be an eyesore in front of the guests, I slipped out through the back door. I didn't dare to go far outside the door, so I just wandered in the bamboo forest outside the back door. I was really bored, so I just hummed the little song my aunt taught me. I liked that song so much that I sang so beautifully that I didn't know someone was coming behind me. He said, "You sang so beautifully that I got lost and forgot where I was going." He is wearing a light blue gown, the material is thin and elegant, and a ring-shaped jade pendant hangs around his waist. At first glance, he is not an ordinary young master. He is tall, neither fat nor thin, with delicate features and an elegant temperament that only a scholar can have. With just one glance, he fell into my heart. Speaking of this, Aunt Meng's eyes lit up like an ignorant girl. Zhang Shiyu couldn't bear to interrupt her and listened quietly. That day, we had a great conversation. His eyes were as gentle as water, which made people fall intoxicated after just one more glance. He said that he was a Nujinshi. I told him that I was a concubine of the Meng family. He said that was not important. It's good that he is a direct descendant. When we parted that day, he said we would meet again in the bamboo forest tomorrow. After I went back, I washed my face with cold water and told myself that it was just a daydream. The next day, I went to the bamboo forest again by mistake, and he was waiting there. He said he was worried that I wouldn't be able to leave the house, and he was also worried that I wouldn't believe him and he wouldn't go to the appointment. In the days that followed, we went boating on the lake and spent time together. He promised me to persuade family members to come to propose marriage. Aunt Meng said with mist in her eyes. Hearing this, Zhang Shiyu secretly cursed in her heart, men are deceitful. Young men in the capital all use this kind of excuse to deceive concubines into leaving young ladies. 9 times out of 10, they will get the girl's body and nothing will happen. Sure enough, Aunt Meng sighed and said, "It's all my wishful thinking. When my love got too strong, I lost my head and put myself in a passive position." Aunt Meng raised her sleeves to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes, and looked at Zhang Shiyu with a wry smile. "You must have guessed that he is here to propose marriage, but the person asking for marriage is not me, but my sister-in-law." Zhang Shiyu couldn't help but interject, "It doesn't matter if you don't want such a treacherous and heartless man, why don't Aunt choose another lover?" Aunt Meng shook her head slowly, "I am already his, so why do I have other thoughts? He told me afterwards that his mother forced me to marry my sister-in-law, and made me live in the house with my sister-in-law as a concubine. Said he would never treat me badly. MRS right Prime Minister didn't agree. No, it was me who took the initiative to let her go. I watched my aunt live lowly and be half master and half slave since I was a child. I don't want to make the same mistake again. In order not to cause trouble to other sisters' marriages, I took the initiative to comb my hair and come to Dehua Temple to be my aunt. Hearing this, Zhang Shiyu was filled with indignation. Aunt Meng, your sister-in-law is so evil. You and the Prime Minister have known each other for a long time, and you are hiding here. Yet she is still trying to take your life. She is too vicious, a heartless person with the heart of a snake and a scorpion. A perfect match. A trace of sarcasm appeared on Aunt Meng's lips. Sister-in-law is used to pretending to be virtuous and virtuous. When she found out that I had a relationship with that man, she hypocritically persuaded me to follow her into the Kui mansion. I sternly refused and waited for her to marry into Kui's house. When she was pregnant, the man started to think about taking a concubine. She pretended to be generous and brought the man to the nunnery to persuade me to go home. In fact, she wanted to use me to enter Kui's house to help her consolidate her favor. Zhang Shiyu asked, Aunt Meng, have you gone back? No, but I don't know when she tampered with my food. Later, she would always send people to deliver supplements and medicinal materials from time to time. After returning home to recuperate, I returned to Peach Blossom Temple. Not long after my aunt died of illness, I lost my mother. When I went to the city and passed by my door, I never stepped through that door. Zhang Shiyu carefully calculated that after more than 20 years, the heart-eating grass should have killed Aunt Meng long ago. Could it be that Meng had a soft heart and stopped in the process? When I was wondering, I heard Aunt Meng say quietly, I was still young and high-spirited at that time. On the surface I pretended not to care, but in fact I hated them in my heart, especially that person. I threw away all the medicinal materials sent by his Kui family. Zhang Shiyu breathed a sigh of relief. Aunt Meng, you're lucky you didn't take those medicinal materials continuously, otherwise, my little girl wouldn't be able to see you. Sister-in-law is such a smart person. Seeing that although I was in poor health, I was still alive and well, she came to Peach Blossom Temple to stay for 2 days every year when the peach blossoms were in full bloom. This year she didn't come for some reason, so she only sent her daughter. Come over. Did Aunt forgive them later? Otherwise, she wouldn't have the chance to poison them again. Zhang Shiyu raised her eyes and asked. Aunt Meng nodded and sighed. As time goes by, I gradually let go of the hatred in my heart. I also thought that my sister-in-law felt guilty, so she came to see me every year. I didn't know that she was jealous of me to the point of being hopeless to the point of rescue. Aunt Meng's face is bare, her eyebrows are like distant mountain daisy, her eyes are lying with eyes, her face is pale, and the fine lines at the end of her eyes cannot be seen clearly unless you look closely at them. Her voice is as sweet as a girl's, and her charm is still there. Zhang Shiyu secretly guessed that no man would be tempted by such a beautiful and charming woman. She must have been deeply in love with Yu Xiang years ago, and it was under the interference of MRS Kui that she married the legitimate daughter of the Meng family. In this era, one cannot make the decision on marriage. If parents do not obey the orders of a matchmaker, a word of filial piety can overwhelm a person and make him unable to stand up. Aunt Meng became the cinnabar mole in the heart of the right Prime Minister. Meng knew it in her heart but could not do anything about it. She turned around and used the secret methods of the women in the back house on her concubine sister. Looking at the green bean porridge and a dish of side dishes that were still warm on the tray on the table, Zhang Shiyu comforted Aunt Meng for a few words and stood up and said, Aunt, eat while it's hot. I will come to check your pulse tomorrow. Aunt Meng hurriedly stood up to see her off, full of gratitude. Thank you for saving my life, it's really better to see it once. Your pills are really magical. I feel much better now. When she walked to the door, Zhang Shiyu paused. Aunt, you can't be too soft-hearted. There are only people who steal for 1,000 days, but there is no reason to guard against thieves for 1,000 days. You are still so young, you can't let yourself be passive all the time. From Aunt Meng's mouth, I learned that she was less than 40 years old. In modern times, from psychology to physiology, that is the age of youth. When I came out of Aunt Meng's room, it was already night outside. Lanterns were lit in the corridors around. The night was very quiet, so quiet that one could hear one's own heartbeat. She walked towards the path in the garden, and the crickets chirped in the grass under the trees. The lights from afar stretched her shadow very long. She suddenly felt that the ancient Buddha with green lamps was too lonely, and the figures of Nanggong Ziyu and Xiao Jingzhao appeared in her mind involuntarily. Zhang Shiyu's feeling at this time was that for a perfect life, one still needs a partner to feel at ease. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 519. The next day, Zhang Shiyu's eyes lit up when she saw Aunt Meng again. Today, there is no longer just a peachwood hairpin on her temples, but a golden magpie waving. Yesterday she was wearing Xingyi, but today she is wearing a lake-colored long skirt with wide sleeves and a red moire-patterned jacket. Her skin was already very white, and against the backdrop of the light red dress, her overall appearance became even better. When Kui Yudi went to greet her early in the morning, she saw Zhang Shiyu and Qiuju were also there. After saying hello, she discovered that her aunt's dress had changed today. Kui Yudi couldn't help but praise, "My aunt looks so good today. It seems that the medicine prescribed by Sister Zhang has cured her illness." Aunt Meng and Zhang Shiyu looked at each other and nodded slightly. It is said that medicine and medicine are destined to meet people, and Miss Zhang is the one in my destiny. She paused and then said, "Your mother worked hard to get those precious medicinal materials, but the more I took them, the worse it became. It seems that my destiny is in conflict with your mother. Dia returns to Beijing and brings a message to your mother for me. Please don't come to the nunnery to see me in the future. And you, how can you say such heartless words? Mother and grandmother will be so sad when they find out." Kui Yudi's expression changed drastically. She had just gotten engaged. If her husband's family knew that her aunt and mother were not at odds, outsiders would make random guesses about the reason. She has always attached great importance to her reputation. If she leaves her relatives in the nunnery, she will break away from her family. Anyone who hears this will tell her something wrong. A trace of sarcasm appeared on Aunt Meng's lips. "Dire means that even if your mother kills me, I still have to endure it." "No, it's not like that. Auntie, you must have misunderstood something." Kui Yudi shook her head vigorously, her face turned pale. Aunt Meng didn't want to hear her explanation, so she raised her hand to interrupt her. "This is none of your business. You can just tell your mother what I said truthfully. She will naturally know what I said. She will continue to be her right minister's wife from now on. I will live my simple life and no one will compete with her." Zhang Shiyu gave Aunt Meng a thumbs up in her heart. "This is how you should be as a human being, and you don't need to tolerate relatives like this kind of snake and scorpion." Seeing Kui Yudi covering her face and crying and leaving the room, Aunt Meng closed her eyes and took a breath. After a moment, she slowly opened her eyes and looked at Zhang Shiyu with a calm face. "She is a little girl after all. Am I going too far?" "No," Aunt Meng said it very well. "Miss Kui is not as innocent and fragile as you think." Zhang Shiyu sat down opposite Aunt Meng and took Aunt Meng's pulse. The pulse is stable and smooth, and has improved significantly. "Auntie, don't always eat vegetarian food. Occasionally, you can eat some meat as a tonic. This will help your body restore its immunity." "Okay, I will slowly nurse myself back to health. Thank you, Yuiniang. Can I call you that?" Aunt Meng withdrew her hand, poured a cup of honey peach blossom tea from the kettle that had been prepared and handed it over. "Have a try. There are some bees in the nunnery. The honey collected at this season is enough for the sisters to eat for a year. Zhang Shuyu took it with both hands. Auntie, just call me Yu Niang. The elders around me all call me that. Aunt Meng smiled and said, Yu Niang, try it quickly. Peach blossoms and honey taste very good together, and it should be beneficial. Aunt Meng looked at Qiuju and said, pour me a cup and try it. There are no outsiders here, so don't be cautious. Zhang Shuyu had lived in the village, so she naturally knew how to use local materials. While drinking honey peach blossom tea, I chatted with Aunt Meng about some dietary supplements. At this time, in a small town on the border, in an inconspicuous inn, Nangang Ziyu sat sideways in an armchair, holding a book in her hand and reading seriously. It is inconvenient to read while sitting in a carriage every day. Traveling requires speed, and the carriage is inevitably bumpy. Yu Niang said that is not good for the eyes, so he chooses to read before going to bed every day. Nangang Jun arranged for his junior brothers to take turns to stay on duty at night and pushed the door open and walked in. Your Highness, it's been a tiring day. Please settle in early. Nangang Ziyu really couldn't do anything to his senior brothers. Before he entered the Liang Kingdom Palace, everyone stopped calling him junior brother. He has corrected everyone several times, but everyone still insists that he will step into the territory of Liang Kingdom tomorrow morning. He simply no longer cares about the title. Anyway, he still calls him senior brother as always. Seeing Nangang Jun holding the quilt and going to make the floor, Nangang Ziyu jumped up and stretched out her hand to stop him. Elder brother will sleep on the bed. This bed is big enough for the two of us. Nangang Jun patted Nangang Ziyu on the shoulder. Your Highness, don't make trouble, Master said, from now on you are the master and we are servants, don't mess with the rules. Nangang Ziyu took Nangang Jun's hand and pushed him to the bed. Don't listen to Master, we will always be brothers. Those rules are just fooling people. If I can successfully regain my own position when I return to Liang Kingdom, my senior brothers will be the heroes. How can you be a servant? Nangang Jun had no choice but to retreat to the bed and put down the quilt. He said earnestly and sincerely, we are not masters and servants, but also kings and ministers. We cannot mess up the rules and let the soldiers of the Liang Kingdom see it. They will not take His Highness seriously. Nangang Ziyu was speechless and had to admit that the senior brother was right. Yu Niang also once talked to him that when he returned, he had to establish an image for everyone, an image that was not easy to mess with. He thought for a moment and said, I listen to senior brother, but it would be better for senior brother to sleep with me tonight. I have a hunch that tonight may not be peaceful. Nangang Jun walked to the window and looked out. The bright moon hung in the sky, the night wind blew by, the shadows of the trees swayed, and there was an imperceptible murderous aura in the silence. His eyesight was very good, and he could see where the junior brothers were hiding with just one glance. Your Highness, rest assured. This is still Wanling's territory. Even if Mozian is arrogant, he dare not send a large group of people to assassinate openly. There have been several groups of assassins along the way, but none of them returned. The envoys were scared, and at night, they dared not sleep soundly. They couldn't sleep well in the carriage during the day, and everyone had dark circles under their eyes. Fortunately, there were no people hiding Mozian in the envoys' team, so they finally had no danger on the way. Nangang Jun planned to take a nap and stay up in the middle of the night, so he took off his shoes and socks and slept in his clothes. Nangang Ziyu sat back in the armchair and picked up the book, but he couldn't read it. The envoy said that it would take at most 3 days to reach the capital of Liang after crossing the border. It is said that people are afraid of home when they are close to home, but he didn't have that feeling. His heart was full of deductions of possible scenarios, just like he deduced the sand table. Thousands of troops were galloping in his mind. Another room in the inn. This is a room with a large bunk bed. It's not that Gong Zishuo was reluctant to pay for the inn, but after several assassinations, no one was willing to live in a room. The envoys were like frightened birds. Even if there was a bird passing by the window, everyone had to open their eyes to take a look. We will cross the border tomorrow. What do you think? Gong Zishuo slept in the position closest to the door. It's not that he is brave, but he drank 2 more bowls of soup at dinner, and when he went to the toilet and came back, this important position was the only one left. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 520. A colleague closest to him opened his eyelids and said, "There are still 3 days to go. It's hard to say whether we can live to see the emperor. What can we think? The assassin's target is His Highness. How afraid are you?" The other person turned over and yawned. "That's not what you said. Swords have no eyes. We successfully found His Highness. His Highness has already regarded us as a thorn in his side. What do you think he will do to us?" "What you said makes sense. Anyway, he has been deeply offended. Let's take a copy of him in front of the emperor when we go back and mutilate his brothers and feet. This crime is enough to make him unable to turn over. Yes, we must complain to the emperor when we return. If this cancerous Mozian succeeds to the throne, we may die without a burial place." This sentence stirred up all the sleeping colleagues. They all gritted their teeth and wished they could return home immediately to attack Mozian. The envoy who was sleeping in the innermost room sat up with his bedding in his arms. "Don't panic, everyone. His Highness has said that when we cross the border tomorrow, we will hang his name on the top of the carriage. If he still sends people to assassinate him, it will mean that there is number 300 taels of silver here, and he will bring it upon himself." Gong Zishuo's words comforted everyone, and everyone nodded in praise. "During this journey, I have come to realize that His Highness is smart, kind to his own people, and ruthless to bad people. Yes, we have to talk to other colleagues in private when we go back. Those high positions are occupied by virtuous people. We have to wait until we get back to plan everything. Let's get some rest." The candlelight in the room gradually weakened. Gong Zishuo glanced at the closed doors and windows and lay down. The further away Nangong Ziyu was from the capital, the stronger the longing in her heart became. He carefully put away the unread notebook, took out paper and charcoal and wrote the letter at his desk. "Holding the pen in my hand, I have all kinds of thoughts in my heart but don't know how to write. She may still be that black-hearted woman after all, so don't try to arouse the love thread in her heart. It would be best for her to let time dilute the love in her heart, right?" Nangong Ziyu hesitated for a long time and only wrote 6 simple words on the paper. "I'll be crossing the border tomorrow, don't miss it." The signature is Mo Zixuan. After putting away the paper and pen, Nangong Ziyu undressed and walked to the bed. 4th watch time. A group of men in black ejected from the woods beside the official road like ghosts and headed straight for the town. Under the silver moonlight, the group of men in black quickly disappeared on the official road. When the group of men in black came outside the inn, suddenly, a sharp whistle pierced the night sky outside the inn, like a nightingale screaming. Hearing the sound of swords being unsheathed, the Black Dragon Pond disciples hiding around the inn jumped out from the darkness one after another. In an instant, swords and swords flashed outside the inn, and the two groups quickly intertwined. As the crisp collision of swords sounded, the Black Dragon Pool disciples who had already slept in the inn heard the sound and flew out with swords in hand. Seeing that there were more people on the other side than his own, the man in black prepared to fight quickly and launched a fierce attack with lightning speed. The sword gleamed coldly in the moonlight. The Black Dragon Pond disciples all had extraordinary skills. They all moved forward together and responded calmly, quickly forcing the men in black to retreat step by step. The blade of the sword caused the leaves on the trees to dance wildly. As the Black Dragon Pond disciples became more and more courageous as they fought, screams came one after another, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. The innkeeper and the waiter were so frightened that they shivered in bed when they heard the noise outside. The clever waiter got out of bed and crawled under the bed to hide. The envoys at Datongpu all sat up, with panic on their faces. Don't panic, I believe His Highness's senior brothers can repel the assassins. Gong Zishuo pretended to be calm and comforted everyone. Yes, His Highness will be blessed if he survives the catastrophe. He is the destined emperor and will be protected by the gods. Someone immediately agreed. The voice of the speaker was trembling, and the rest of the people did not respond. They all prayed secretly in their hearts, hoping that tonight would be the same as the previous few times, without any danger. Every time they heard a scream outside, they all shuddered in unison. In the upper room of the inn, Nangong Jun stood at the window with a long sword in hand and observed the battle outside. Listening to the fierce fighting outside, Nangong Ziyu lost all sleep. He got out of bed and took the sword from the hanger. Your Highness, don't be impulsive. Nangong Jun walked quickly to Nangong Ziyu's side, holding Nangong Ziyu's right arm tightly with one hand. Senior brother, let me go out and take a look. I don't feel at ease. We have poison in our hands. We are not afraid if we can't win. Nangong Ziyu was afraid that her senior brothers would be harmed in the fight. Those were the brothers he grew up with, more than family members. No, Master has told me that no one can get close to you unless I die. Nangong Jun's words were decisive and did not allow Nangong Ziyu to refute, and the big hand holding his arm showed no intention of letting go. Seeing that Nangong Ziyu was no longer stubborn with him, Nangong Jun pulled him to the window. Look, our people have the upper hand. Lao Chi is carrying the poison Miss Zhang gave you. He will never hesitate when it's time to take action. If you go out, it will only make them more helpless. Nangong Ziyu once again lamented that he had not practiced martial arts well before, and some of his brothers had been injured trying to protect him. Going out now really made the senior brothers worry about starting a killing spree. He looked at the glint of swords under the moonlight and said, Senior brother, if you continue to lead me to practice in the future, it won't be a problem if I always hide behind you. Good. Careful. Before he finished speaking, he heard a sound of breaking air. Nangong Jun pulled Nangong Ziyu behind him and swung the long sword in his hand. Dang! A crisp sound of sharp weapons colliding sounded, and the flying arrow feathers were knocked to the ground. Nangong Jun quickly closed the open window and turned around to blow out the candle in the room. Bang bang bang! The arrows in the dark shot over like meteors, all nailed to the window board. Your Highness, move and stay in the 7th room. The other party has found the room you live in. Nangong Jun didn't say anything and pulled Nangong Ziyu to the room across the corridor. Outside the inn, the leader of the black-clothed men saw that most of their people were killed or injured. The archer rushed towards him. Boss, the other party is too cunning, the mission failed. The screams of his companions came to his ears. The leader saw that the other party's fighting style was weird, like a formation that had been practiced thousands of times. Seeing that there were only a few people left, the enemy's people quickly surrounded them. The man in black made a sword flower, gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Retreat. The remaining men in black were like frightened birds, and disappeared in the vast night in a few jumps. When the soldiers at the border guard post heard the sound and rushed over, only the remains of limbs and corpses were left on the ground, and no one was breathing. In the inn, the envoy saw that the fierce fighting outside had disappeared, and everyone's hearts were in their throats, and they all looked at Gong Zishuo. Gong Zishuo swallowed his saliva. I'll go see His Highness. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 521. Master Gongzi, please be safe. Master Gongzi, wait, let's go together. Everyone couldn't help but regard Gong Zishuo as their backbone. Gong Zishuo was actually very scared, but his colleagues were as timid as rats, so he had no choice but to get up and get out of bed. Seeing that his colleagues offered to go together, he pretended to be calm and said, "It's okay to go out together and have a look. If someone is injured, we can help and do something." One of the envoys said weakly, "Your Highness's senior brothers are not only highly skilled in martial arts, but also knowledgeable in medical skills. It seems that there is nothing we can do. If you can't do anything, you have to go and see. It's our duty to protect His Highness from returning to the capital safely." Gong Zishuo's tone was impatient, as if he hated iron for not being able to become steel. They say that a useless person is a scholar, but he didn't agree with it in the past. Along the way, faced with danger again and again, Gong Zishuo's thoughts began to change. Those who know the 4 books and 5 classics, whoever has the fastest sword is the master. He secretly decided to let his youngest son abandon literature and join the martial arts when he returned. Gong Zishuo opened the door and led everyone outside the room where Nangong Ziyu lived. The door was ajar, and there was no one in the room. "Your Highness, is he okay?" The envoy's voice trembled as he spoke, his tongue began to become knotted, and he looked towards the direction of the hall. Seeing that the hall was brightly lit and there was no sound of fighting, Gong Zishuo waved his hand and said, "Go to the hall." In the hall, Nangong Ziyu and his senior brother were calm and methodical in bandaging the wounds of the injured senior brothers. "Old 13, please bear with it, it will hurt a little if the numbness is gone." Nangong Jun sprinkled the golden medicine on the wound on junior brother 13's arm, and then clamped the needle and thread in the liquor. Lao Shizhen gritted his teeth and said as if he was ready to die, "Brother, just sew it up, I'm not afraid of pain." Nangong Ziyu bandaged the wound of another senior brother, turned around, picked up a cotton towel, rolled it up and handed it to old 13's mouth. "Brother 13, bite it." Lao Shizhen opened his mouth without hesitation and bit the cotton towel in his mouth. The senior brother had just received 2 stitches, and beads of sweat were already forming on his forehead. When the envoys came in, they saw this bloody scene. "There are just a few people left," an envoy staggered and almost fainted. Nangong Ziyu turned around and frowned slightly. "What did you say?" Gong Zishuo glared at his colleagues. "Don't say anything unlucky. The others must have gone back to their rooms." Nangong Ziyu told the envoys, "Master Gongzi, stay here while the others go to fetch water and deliver it to the clean room." The envoys were stunned for a moment and didn't understand what was meant. Gong Zishuo was the first to understand. "Don't be stunned. The assassin's blood must have splashed on everyone. Get some water quickly. Let's go right now." The envoys rolled up their sleeves and ran to the well in the backyard of the inn. The envoys fetched water and sent it to the clean room. They were relieved when they saw that everyone was neat and tidy. Everyone knows that these senior brothers of His Highness are their life-saving talisman. If the life-saving talisman is gone, they will be like laying bunks on the floor in a hut, not far from shit. In the hall, Gong Zishuo took a look at the wound being sutured. The cleaned wound was 2 inches long. At first glance, it was shocking. The skin was cracked and the muscles were turned out, revealing a bright red underneath. Gong Zishuo had never seen such a bloody scene before. His calves were shaking under his robe. As the stitches were sewn one by one, blood was slowly seeping out, and the robe under the arm was stained red with blood. There was a strong smell of blood in the air. "Your Highness, Weiken." Before Gong Zishuo could finish his words, Nangong Ziyu said, "Go find a pair of scissors quickly. Weiken is going now." The shopkeeper and waiter in the inn were too scared to come out. Gong Zishuo took an oil lamp and walked to the counter. "Luckily I found the scissors in the counter drawer." After Nangong Jun sewed up the wound, he took the golden medicine handed over by Nangong Ziyu and shook it on the wound, then bandaged it carefully. Seeing that the gauze was not soaked with blood to a large extent, Nangong Jun breathed a sigh of relief. The remaining people in the hall were not seriously injured, so they cleaned up and went back to the house to rest. Gong Zishuo brought scissors and saw Nangong Jun cutting off Lao Shizhen's clothes from the shoulders. Nangong Ziyu picked up the handkerchief and helped wipe the blood on her body. Gong Zishuo saw that the water in the wooden basin on the ground was all red, so he quickly rolled up his sleeves and said, "Wei Chen, go get a basin of water." Gong Zishuo brought clean water, and Nangong Ziyu wiped Brother 13's body with her own hands until all the blood stains were removed, and then put on clean clothes. After cleaning up, Nangong Ziyu and her senior brother sent Lao Shizhen back to the house to settle down before going back to the house to rest. Gong Zishuo took the envoys back to the house. It was already past the 5th watch. The night was uneventful, and everyone only got a full night's sleep. The next day, a group of people crossed the border in a mighty manner. The envoys put on their official robes, and the flags on the carriages had the word "Mo" written in big letters. Nangong Ziyu is on horseback, wearing a red robe with dark embroidery. She has a tall and straight figure, gorgeous clothes, and elegant demeanor, with a confident smile hanging on the corner of her mouth. It was as if everything was under his control. He was sitting upright on horseback, his robes fluttering in the wind, giving him a bohemian yet sacrosanct aura. Entering the territory of Liang Kingdom, the people along the way stopped and cast strange glances. Someone exclaimed, "Look, the ministers who were sent to Wanling have returned, and the one walking in front is the missing eldest prince. God has opened his eyes, the eldest prince is back." The people knelt down when they heard the exclamation. "Welcome the eldest prince back. Welcome the eldest prince back." The voice was loud. Nangong Ziyu raised his arm and waved to the people. He was handsome and bright. His appearance was like a beautiful landscape, attracting everyone's attention. The folk customs of Liang State were more open than those of Wanling. There were girls in the crowd waving their handkerchiefs vigorously at Nangong Ziyu. Nangong Ziyu's fox eyes were originally full of autumnal waves. His eyes only swept across the crowd lightly, but the girls saw the eyes full of affection cast on themselves. Suddenly, the girls screamed with excitement. As the horse moved forward, the screams in his ears were left behind. Nangong Ziyu glanced sideways and saw the eldest brother looking at him. That look was hard to describe. Nangong Jun has long been accustomed to it. His junior brother is handsome and is liked by women wherever he goes. The folk customs of Wanling have many restrictions on women, and girls dare not be so crazy even if they like him. Looking at the scene just now, Nangong Jun couldn't help but secretly sweat for his junior brother. Nangong Ziyu didn't expect that his ostentatious parade would have such side effects. Senior brother 13 was seriously injured and not suitable for riding a horse. He gave the carriage sent by Xiao Jingzhao to the injured senior brothers. Nangong Jun looked back at the prisoner car covered with black cloth. "Your Highness, how to deal with these people?" After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 522. Nangong Ziyu's eyes flashed with a fierce look, and a bloodthirsty sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Of course, let the emperor take a look first, and then kill him. He kept in mind Yu Niang's instructions and set up a persona for himself. He first killed Mo Xian's prestige and let those ministers who were fence-sitters know that he was not easy to bully. Nangong Ziyu had arranged for people to go out and spread the word. He wanted to let the people of the entire Liang Kingdom know that he was back. He was so prosperous along the way, and the people were looking forward to and enthusiastic about his return, which moved him very much. He learned from Gong Zishuo that the reason why the people were so enthusiastic about him was inseparable from the queen's efforts over the years. After the queen lost her beloved son, she went to the temple to pray for blessings and alms every once in a while, and countless people had received her favor. Some envoys felt that the eldest prince was too ostentatious to come back like this, and they were secretly scared, fearing that they would be assassinated again at night. However, the nights back in the capital were unusually quiet. Although there were no assassins, they still didn't sleep well. The capital of Liang State was built in Yunmen City. When the news reached Yunmen City, Mozian was so angry that he smashed the study. The people sent out were killed in batches, and only a few came back to report the news. The guards outside the study shook their heads when they heard the sound of porcelain falling in the room. "Your Highness, calm down. The eldest prince will enter the palace soon. It's useless for you to be angry. You should think of a countermeasure quickly," the personal guard in the room advised tremblingly. "Waste, a bunch of waste, can't even kill a powerless person," Mozian said, grabbing the inkstone on the table and smashing it. The guard plucked up the courage to say, "Don't worry, third prince. His identity has yet to be ascertained. Those corrupt officials' words are not enough. Who knows where they got a fake from?" Mozian's eyes lit up. "Yes. I was confused by the Nanzao kingdom and those trash. None of them are useful. That's right. As long as he can't pass the blood test, no matter who he is, he has to go back to where he came from." Mozian gently put down the inkstone, with a triumphant smile on his face. "My father's health is getting weaker and weaker. There are spies everywhere in the palace. The queen's every move is under his surveillance. I don't think he, a person with no foundation and unknown origin, can accomplish anything." Mozian thought for a while and walked quickly towards the harem. In Yongchun Palace, a beautiful woman in light and gorgeous clothes was lazily lying on the chaise longue. Because she was lying on her side, her clothes were half open, her breasts were half exposed, and her snow-white skin was like white jade. The beautiful woman was about 30 years old, beautiful as a flower, with a curvy figure, flowing eyes, and a mature and seductive charm. The so-called natural charm refers to beauties like her. She was none other than Mozian's biological mother, concubine Lan, and also the princess sent by Nanzao to Liang. In front of the concubine's chair, a tall man knelt down to report to her the battle situation between Nanzao and Wanling. The beautiful woman stared at the man in front of her with her charming eyebrows and asked, "Has the South said when to fight again?" The man raised his eyes, and his eyes greedily stayed on the exposed chest. His Adam's apple rolled up and down, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "I have inquired with the general. Nanzao suffered heavy losses. The soldiers need to rest for a while. There is no plan to send troops for the time being." "Well, thank you for your hard work." Concubine Lan had a soul-stirring smile in her eyes, and her green onion-like hand reached out to the man's face. The slender fingers were painted with bright red nail polish, and the jade fingers stroked the man's long thick eyebrows, gently stroked the straight nose bridge, and finally stopped at the elastic sexy lips and rubbed back and forth. Concubine Ian's beautiful eyes fell on the man, as if she was appreciating a painting, and the possessiveness she inadvertently revealed was like looking at her beloved pet. The man in front of her had handsome features like sculptures, with sharp edges and corners, and a strong and upright body like an eagle on the grassland. He exuded the unique charm of men all over his body. Especially the look in his eyes when he looked at her, as if he wanted to swallow her alive. Concubine Lan liked his unconcealed fiery eyes. A wisp of fragrance lingered at the tip of her nose, and the beauty was lying in front of her. The man's blood had already been aroused and swollen, like a beast ready to go. When the soft hand touched his Adam's apple, she suddenly grabbed the jade hand and put it on her face. The man looked up into the palace and saw that there were no maids close to him. He held the tender hand and kissed it. "Han Nu, come on, I have sent all the maids away." Concubine Ian's other hand was wrapped around Han Nu's neck like a spirit snake. "Princess, I have not seen you for a few days. Today I will serve you well." Han Nu lowered his head and kissed the seductive red lips, rubbing them. A pair of rough hands moved up and down, and the beauty's panting came to his ears. The gauze rolled over the fragrant shoulders, revealing the spring scenery. Han Nu whispered, "Princess, you are so beautiful, you are like the blazing fire of our Nanzao, fragrant and crisp, making me dream. Han Nu's voice was hoarse, and the hot kiss went down along the snow-white neck. Concubine Lan enjoyed the man's passion. In a moment, the whole person collapsed on the chaise longue. Among the guards sent by Nanzao, she liked Han Nu the most. He was handsome and mighty, young and strong. Unlike other warriors, he was gentle and delicate, and knew how to combine strength and softness. Concubine Ian's eyes were blurred, and she panted, "Slave, carry me inside." Han Nu's eyes were full of lust and desire, and he had been ignited by the beauty in his arms. He tightened his hands, his knees were off the ground, and concubine Ian's arms were wrapped around his neck. He embraced the soft and fragrant beauty and walked into the palace with big strides, leaving the princess lying on the chaise longue in a messy dress. Outside the bedroom, several palace maids stood with their hands down. They were all the confidants of concubine Lan. They knew very well that Han Nu served the concubine. Every time Han Nu came to Yongchun Palace, it would take at least an hour or a whole night, and the palace maids who served her closely were used to it. Their duty was to stay outside and not let anyone in to disturb them. In the bedroom, the gauze curtains were like being blown by the spring breeze, rippling. The two of them were like a long drought meeting sweet dew, embracing each other. Han Nu was like a loyal servant, going through fire and water, obeying the princess in every way, and letting the princess do whatever she wanted. Then he was like a warrior on the battlefield, galloping on his horse, and he seemed to be getting braver and braver. The room was in full swing. Outside the palace, Amozian hurried over and saw the maids standing outside the bedroom. She scolded them coldly, "Why are you all here? Who will serve my mother?" How could the maids dare to tell the truth that Han Nu was serving in the inner hall? They knelt down in a hurry. "Your Highness, please stay. The queen is sleeping." The maids are afraid of disturbing the queen, so they are serving outside. Amozian paused. It's time to sleep." A clever maid said quickly, "The queen was worried about the war between Nanzao and Wanling last night. She couldn't sleep all night. She was tired after breakfast today." The maid secretly raised her eyes and glanced at Amozian's face. "If the prince has nothing important, you can come to see the queen later." Amozian hesitated. "Forget it, I'll go to the front hall and wait. I'll inform my mother when she wakes up." The maid in charge winked at the two maids beside her. The two maids nodded slightly and followed in small steps to serve. After about half an hour, the maid in charge estimated that the work inside should be done. After hesitating for a while, she gritted her teeth and turned to the inner hall. The maid stopped at the door of the bedroom and pricked up her ears. There was no sound of love-making in the inner hall. I don't know what Han Nu was saying or doing, but I can hear bursts of laughter from the imperial concubine. The laughter was cheerful, which showed that she was in a very good mood today. The maid in charge coughed heavily and reported, "Madam, the third prince wants to see you."